It was a warm afternoon in the small village of Kaveri, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. The village was peaceful, a quiet retreat far from the bustling city. The sounds of children playing, the laughter of friends, and the soft rustling of the trees in the wind filled the air. The community was tight-knit, and everyone knew each other. Families lived simple, happy lives, tending to their farms and enjoying the tranquility of the countryside. Among the villagers was little Arya, a bright-eyed 6-year-old with a joyful spirit. She loved to run through the fields with her friends, her small feet kicking up the dust as she chased butterflies and listened to the birds sing. Arya's parents, Maya and Raj, were loving and protective, but they always allowed her to explore, confident in the safety of their village. On this particular afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the village, Arya wandered away from the fields, as she often did, to visit the nearby forest. Her parents, busy with work, hadn't noticed at first, but as the minutes stretched into hours, Maya began to worry. Arya had never been gone this long, and she was always so careful to stay close to the village. By the time Maya realized that something was wrong, the atmosphere had shifted. Her heart pounded in her chest as she rushed toward the forest, calling for Arya. But there was no answer. The forest, which had always been a peaceful place, now felt like a labyrinth of shadows. The trees seemed to close in around her as the light began to fade. In the distance, she saw something moving. A figure, hunched and cloaked, was dragging Arya through the underbrush. The child was kicking and screaming, trying to break free, but the man, clearly a stranger, had a firm grip on her wrist. Maya froze for a moment, the blood draining from her face. Her daughter, her precious child, was in danger. Without thinking, Maya rushed toward the figure, shouting for help, but the man quickly noticed her and turned, pulling Arya deeper into the woods. Maya's voice trembled as she screamed for Arya, but the kidnapper's footsteps grew fainter as he disappeared into the trees. Maya stood there for a moment, panicked and breathless, unsure of what to do. She didn't know where to go, who to turn to. But there was one thing she did know: she couldn't let this man take her daughter. Maya's legs moved faster than they ever had before, her feet pounding against the forest floor as she followed the distant sounds of the struggle. The man wasn't far ahead, and with every step, Maya felt the cold grip of fear tightening around her heart. She couldn't lose Arya. She couldn't let her little girl be taken from her. But then, just as Maya was about to lose all hope, a low growl echoed through the trees. Maya froze. It wasn't the growl of a wolf or a bear. This was something different. It was deep, guttural, filled with power. The sound sent a shiver down Maya's spine. She didn't know what it was, but she knew that whatever it wasn't something she wanted to face in her current state of panic. The growl grew louder, and Maya's heart raced even faster. She turned in the direction of the sound, and then she saw it. Standing in the clearing ahead, bathed in the dappled light of the setting sun, was a majestic tiger. Its orange and black fur gleamed in the fading light, and its powerful body was poised, its muscles rippling beneath the fur. The tiger's eyes glowed with an intensity that made Maya freeze in her tracks. For a moment, she stood there, completely still, unable to move. The tiger's gaze locked onto her, then shifted to the kidnapper, who had stopped, clearly aware of the beast's presence. The man's face twisted in fear, and for a brief moment, Maya saw a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. The tiger's growl rumbled again, this time louder, more menacing. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. The kidnapper had no time to react. In a flash, the tiger lunged forward, its enormous paws slamming into the ground as it charged toward the man. Maya's heart stopped as the scene unfolded in front of her, unsure of what to expect. The kidnapper dropped Arya's wrist, stumbling backward, but the tiger was faster. With a swift swipe of its massive paw, it knocked the man to the ground. The tiger's teeth bared, and the man scrambled to get away, but the tiger was relentless, keeping him pinned to the earth with a powerful force that left the man gasping for air. Maya stood in shock, her heart pounding, as she watched the tiger subdue the kidnapper. It wasn't trying to kill him, it was simply holding him down, ensuring that he could do no more harm. The tiger's eyes never left the man's, a silent warning that it would not allow him to leave. The man, now completely terrified, pleaded for mercy, but the tiger's gaze was unyielding. Maya, though still trembling with fear, couldn't believe her eyes. She slowly approached, her voice hoarse with emotion. "Arya," she called out, her heart racing. Arya, who had been frozen in place, now turned toward her mother. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but she was unharmed. She ran toward Maya, wrapping her arms around her, clinging to her mother for dear life. Maya knelt down, holding her daughter tightly. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice cracking. The tiger, hearing the voice of the child, turned its head toward them. Its eyes softened slightly, and then, with a final, menacing growl toward the kidnapper, it backed away. The man scrambled to his feet, looking over his shoulder at the tiger, his face pale with fear. But the tiger was no longer focused on him. It had done its part. Maya watched in awe as the tiger, with a final glance at them, disappeared back into the forest, its powerful form blending into the shadows. She couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. A wild animal, a creature of pure strength and ferocity, had saved her daughter. It wasn't just a protector of the wild that had become her savior. After the tiger disappeared into the forest, Maya and Arya stood there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. The storm that had been building inside the forest had passed, and the air felt still, almost serene. It was as if the world had momentarily paused to acknowledge the incredible act of heroism that had just unfolded. Maya slowly turned to Arya, wiping the tears from her daughter's face. "You're safe, darling. You're safe," she repeated, almost as though saying it out loud would make it real. Arya, still shaken but now free from danger, clung to her mother. "Mom, the tiger ... it saved me. It saved me." Maya nodded, unable to speak. She had no words for what had just occurred. How could she explain the unexplainable? A wild tiger had intervened when no one else could, and it had done so with such fierce protection, such noble intent, that it almost seemed as though the animal had known her child was in danger from the start. When the authorities arrived to take the kidnapper into custody, they were stunned by the story. No one in the village had ever seen a tiger so close to human settlements. The man, still shaking and covered in scratches, was arrested for attempted kidnapping. He claimed he had been hunting in the forest and had come across Arya, planning to take her for ransom, but the tiger had stopped him cold. But Maya knew the truth. The tiger wasn't just protecting her daughter, it was protecting them both. It had risked its life to ensure that the child would be safe, and in doing so, it had forged a bond between man and animal that no one could ever fully understand. As the days passed and life returned to normal, Maya couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude every time she looked at Arya. The bond between mother and daughter was now even stronger, but it was also strengthened by an incredible, unlikely hero tiger who had saved a child and, in turn, changed their lives forever. Years later, Maya would often tell Arya the story of the tiger who had saved her life. As Arya grew older, she began to understand the true depth of that moment. The tiger, whose presence had been so fleeting, had left an indelible mark on their hearts. Though the tiger never returned, its legacy lived on in the family's story, a story of heroism, courage, and the wild connection between humans and nature. And every time Arya ventured into the woods, she remembered that fateful day, knowing that the wild held secrets, dangers, and heroes in the most unexpected forms. Years passed, and Arya grew into a young woman, always carrying the story of the tiger with her like a badge of honor. The memory of that fateful day was something that stayed with her, weaving itself into the very fabric of her being. As she grew older, she began to see the world through a different lens, one shaped not just by the love of her family, but by the extraordinary bond between humans and the wild. In the quiet village of Kaveri, life moved on, but something had changed. The community, once wary of the nearby forests and the animals that roamed through them, had started to embrace the idea of coexistence. They had seen firsthand the power and grace of the tiger, and that moment of heroism had changed their view of nature forever. It wasn't just about fear of the unknown anymore, it was about respect. They began to see that the creatures of the forest were not just wild and untamed, they were part of the world's delicate balance. Arya, inspired by her encounter with the tiger, became an advocate for wildlife conservation. She spent years traveling to various regions, educating communities about the importance of protecting the environment and the animals that lived within it. Every story she told about the tiger was a call to action, reminding people that animals were not just threats to be feared or ignored, they were protectors, they were heroes, they were our allies. The impact of the tiger's actions rippled through the village, inspiring a new generation of people to view the forest not as a threat, but as a sanctuary. It was a place to be respected, a place where humans could learn to live in harmony with the creatures that inhabited it. Arya's own relationship with nature deepened, and as she grew older, she found herself drawn more and more to the forest, where she felt the presence of the tiger, its spirit, its protection, its bravery still watching over the land. She often visited the forest where the tiger had saved her, sitting quietly by the trees, feeling a connection to the wild that was both humbling and empowering. Arya had come to understand that the tiger's protection wasn't just a one-time event. The tiger's heroism had planted a seed in the heart of the village and in her own heart. It had shown her the true nature of strength, not in violence or dominance, but in protection, sacrifice, and love for all living beings. Arya's life became intertwined with the forest, and she found herself working alongside environmentalists and conservationists, ensuring that the legacy the tiger lived on through the preservation of the habitat that had made it strong. She became a voice for the animals fighting against deforestation, illegal poaching, and the degradation of the land. Every step she took, every action she made, was a tribute to the tiger, the hero who had saved her life. One day, years later, Arya returned to the clearing where the tiger had saved her all those years ago. It was a moment she had been thinking about for a long time, and she felt an overwhelming pull to the place. The forest had grown denser, the trees taller, but there was a sense of peace there and energy that had always remained. As she stood at the edge of the clearing, memories flooded back. The fear, the uncertainty, the shock of seeing a wild tiger so close, and the overwhelming gratitude for its protection. But what struck Arya most as she stood there was not the memory of the danger, but the sense of profound connection she felt with that moment. The tiger had not only saved her life, it had changed the course of her life, shaping the woman she had become. Arya stepped carefully into the clearing, as though she were stepping into a sacred space. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the air around her, the wind whispering through the leaves. She had always believed that the tiger's spirit had never truly left. It lived in the forest, in the trees, in the wildlife, and in the hearts of the people whose lives it had touched. As she walked deeper into the clearing, Arya's heart skipped a beat. She saw something movement in the distance. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't the tiger, of course, but a figure, a shadow, darting between the trees. For a brief moment, Arya felt the overwhelming sensation that the tiger had not truly left, that its spirit was still watching over this place. It was then that Arya realized that the tiger had given her more than just protection. It had given her a purpose, a lifelong mission to defend the creatures of the wild. Its heroism had lit a fire within her, a fire that burned brightly every day. She fought for the protection of the environment. As Arya stood there, she made a silent promise to the tiger to continue its legacy, to ensure that the lessons it had taught her were passed down to future generations. The tiger had taught her that true strength came from love and protection, not violence. It had shown her that the wild was not something to be feared, but something to be cherished. Arya's life became a testament to the lessons she had learned that fateful day. She continued her work in wildlife conservation, dedicating her life to protecting the habitats of endangered animals. She worked with governments, organizations, and local communities to create protected areas for wildlife and raise awareness about the importance of preserving natural habitats. As the years went by, Arya's efforts began to pay off. The forests surrounding Kaveri were protected, the wildlife flourished, and the once frightened villagers became the forest's fiercest allies. People from all over came to learn from Arya, inspired by her story of survival and her dedication to protecting the creatures that had saved her. But Arya never forgot the tiger. She knew that without its intervention, her life would have taken a very different path. And though the tiger was no longer physically present, its spirit lived.